Hello and welcome to Consciousness at Play, where we discuss ideas, philosophies, and relevant topics with a spiritual twist. I just want to welcome our listeners to, another episode, and we're here on this lovely Saturday. And we're going to be getting into a few interesting topics this weekend. Uh, I just want to steer everyone's attention to Big Pharma and the Food and Drug Administration. Um, these are often entities that we're supposed to trust, but I think if we take a closer look, we can see that these administrations and companies are kind of looking out for themselves and don't really have our best interests at heart. So um, just want to talk about that. And then we'll get into a topic of, just sober month and like some of the takeaways from things that worked for us last month and just what our goals are going forward. So I recently watched a video interview between Russell Brand and an investigative journalist named David Sirota that brought a lot of things to my attention, some of which I was already aware of and some of which was new to me. And as I said before, I feel like my goal on this podcast is just to shift listeners' attention and awareness to things that I believe that are important and things that we should pay attention to. So in this interview, some of the main takeaways that I learned was that Big Pharma's business model is to take government money, aka taxes, for research and development. And while researching and developing these cures, they spend money to buy back their own stock, which enriches their shareholders, which causes price hikes for medicines that people depend on. And during the pandemic, the Biden administration tried to procure waivers from pharmaceutical giants to allow poor countries access to the vaccine recipe. But what happened was wealthy countries got together and effectively blocked the waivers that poor third world countries were asking for. Another thing that I want to point out is that the US has a market where under the law, you're not allowed to, as a consumer, purchase medicines from markets like Canada and European markets, although these drugs are FDA approved, which pretty much creates a monopoly. And, they always pose the market as a free market, but in reality, there are a lot of restrictions that lead to these companies becoming uber rich and people depending on them, for the rest of their lives because these medicines are either not available at a price that people can afford, or these drugs are being used to treat people rather than cure people. So that's the topic that I kind of want to bring to the pod this week. And there's also a couple other things that I wanted to mention, but we'll check in with each other there and just kind of want to see how you feel about it.
Yeah, I've been aware of the FDA and how weird and how many nefarious characters there are that work within these big pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer and all those, and the government, and how they're intertwined with each other and making each other money and hiking up prices. So I've been aware of this, but I like that you're bringing the listeners' attention to it again, because I think it's an important thing to be aware of, especially when you get sick or you're in need of medications or you have a disease. You can kind of make smart decisions and understand what your doctors and potentially pharmaceutical companies are trying to sell to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that I kind of want to point out was, you know, there's a reason why so many companies are offering their own versions of sildenafil, which is a medication used to treat erectile dysfunction and also like hair loss products. So I don't know if you live in a big city, you may have taken the subway and you'd notice like an ad for Roman or for Hims. And, usually these drug companies are selling the generic versions of Viagra. And for a long time, this is also an interesting fun fact that I learned that per US patent law, drug makers get 20 years of exclusive market rights to sell their pills. So for 20 years, when they come out with this patent, they're able to pretty much be the only suppliers in the game, allowing them to get rich, not allowing other companies to create the same drug but at a cheaper value. So when these patents expire, it's typically when you'll see this huge surge from other companies that begin to sell these products. For example, in the UK, a patent for Propecia is a medication named finasteride, which is a long-term daily tablet for men to combat hair loss, expired in October 2014, opening the door for cheaper generic versions of this expensive drug. And so, yeah, I think that a lot of people aren't usually aware of this. This is something that's like I came across in doing my own little research, and it kind of explains why these companies are able um to profit so much off of, people's essential like loss. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And it makes me think about how most of these medications are really copies of naturally occurring substances. So a lot of these things can be found in different plants, different fungi, just different things in general. And I don't know, pharmaceutical industry in general, it's hard to want to trust it. It's hard.
100%. And speaking of like, reasons why it's hard to trust these companies, I wanted to share with our listeners a video that I came across from Vice, and I'll share it now. Hopefully we don't have any commercials. It always gives me a commercial when right when I'm ready to play the video. Here we go. I'm gonna share this. You can see that, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
In 1995, Purdue Pharma released a powerful pain medication called OxyContin, downplaying the drug's addictive properties.
Less than 1% of patients taking opioids actually become addicted.
Since then, more than 500,000 people have died of opioid-related overdoses in the US.
Can you breathe? Can you hear me, honey? Wake up.
Thousands of lawsuits have been filed against Purdue Pharma and other opioid makers.
The global settlement announced today involves the company pleading guilty to 3 felony counts for defrauding the United States.
But the FDA has escaped much of the blame.
Had the Food and Drug Administration done its job properly, I don't believe that the United States would be in the midst of an epidemic of opioid addiction.
OxyContin's misleading label, which downplayed the risk of abuse, was approved by the FDA. Purdue Pharma used this seal of approval to aggressively market the drug as safe and effective for chronic pain.
I had a daughter who was prescribed OxyContin, and she died as a result. She had a backache, and her doctor prescribed it.
Had FDA enforced the law, Purdue never would have been allowed to promote its products for these conditions.
Since I've been on this new pain medication, I have not missed one day of work, and my boss really appreciates that.
As a result, opioid prescriptions surged. Why didn't the FDA do a better job at safeguarding American lives?
Why the FDA failed is difficult to say. Doctors across the country were hearing that patients are suffering needlessly because of an overblown fear of addiction, and the compassionate thing to do is to prescribe opioids more aggressively.
They don't wear out, they go on working, they do not have serious medical side effects.
It's possible that some of the FDA officials were influenced by this same campaign, a campaign promoted by the pharmaceutical industry. And so maybe you could give some of these officials the benefit of the doubt.
In 2002, as the dangers of OxyContin became clearer,
Eventually, it stopped working. It was probably the most unbelievable, excruciating, horrible time of my life.
a meeting was held at the FDA to review the labeling of opioids.
And at that meeting, FDA really could have taken the right steps, but instead we saw FDA go in the opposite direction. It began approving a steady stream of new opioids. It's really hard to give FDA the benefit of the doubt because it was very clear that we had an emerging public health crisis caused by these drugs.
The majority of advisors at this meeting had ties to pharmaceutical companies, including Purdue Pharma.
So yeah, we'll stop the video right there. But yeah, this highlights, I feel for me at least, why we can't just fully, give over to this idea that our doctors are looking out for us. They have our best interests at heart, or these pharmaceutical companies are actually coming up with cures and things to, help us in the long term. So this is something I feel strongly about. This is something I want people to pay attention to going forward. Use your own discretion, I understand that, we may be looking for cures in the form of medicines, but at the same time, the better we're able to take care of our bodies, the environment in which these diseases or illnesses, thrive off of, the better the lesson that, you know, the lesser chance that these diseases can exist in the environment. So you know, it's not a simple fix. I'm no doctor or anything like that, but you know, in terms of taking medicine to cure something, you know, back pain, I mean, opioids were being prescribed for like basic, you know, simple situations. Like woman said she has back pain, and so the doctor's like, hey, you know, take these opioids, they should, you know, help you out with that. Or just painkillers in general, right? Like, what are some things you do, Dave, when you're experiencing pain? Do you look for aspirin? Do you look for Advil?
I haven't taken those things in maybe 7 or 8 years. You know, I
Any
haven't
particular
taken.
reason?
It's horrible for your gut, especially those steroidal anti-inflammatories that people take for headaches. It's horrible for your gut. So I kind of made and your kidneys as well. So I made a decision a long time ago just not to take them. Luckily, I don't suffer from headaches, so I can't speak for everybody. But I will say, when I first came across like the holistic lifestyle stuff and everything that I'm into now quite deeply, I was going through it. I had a bag full of pills. You know, doctors were just giving me pain meds and nerve pain, pills to help with nerve pain. And they were just giving it to me like a 20-year-old kid. And after a while, I just looked at the bag and I just threw everything away. You know what I mean? And ever since, I haven't touched really anything. And in terms of if I was going through back pain or something like that, or if I was in consistent pain, I would look at the most simple things. How's my sleep? Am I stressed? Am I drinking enough water? Am I hydrated? You know, what type of foods have I been eating? Am I moving my body or am I working behind a desk and just sitting there for 30 minutes a day? I'll look at the simple things. And then after you take care of the simple things and you fix those, then maybe you get some more pinpoint opinions. But if you don't have a foundation of health, which most Americans don't, and they're just being prescribed medications, it's just going to exacerbate most of their issues. And it's really unfortunate because the pharmaceutical industry, if you can't understand or kind of get a synopsis of what Jihad is saying, is it's all about making money. Even the people who are supposed to regulate and supposed to oversee how these companies are working, they're all about making money. So at the end of the day, we have to take care of ourselves, bro. And at the end
There
of the
seem to
day,
there seem to be some like critical thinking that goes on when you're experiencing this pain. Somewhere between I'm experiencing pain and let me go to a doctor. The first person I feel, you know, understands my health to the highest degree. Do you like what is different about your way of thinking? There seems to be some intervention, some
I'm an
of
adult
yourself. Okay.
because I'm not a 5-year-old saying, Mommy, Daddy, this hurts, or a 10-year-old or a 13-year-old or a teenager. At a certain point, we have to become adults and take responsibilities for ourselves and our body. You might not have all the answers when it comes to fixing different ailments, but you have to be able to check in with yourself. In my philosophy of life, cancer just doesn't pop up because of your luck. Oh, I had bad luck. I caught, whatever disease. No, you looked in the mirror every morning. You saw the darkness under your eyes getting darker and darker. You saw your face getting droopy. You saw your skin losing its elasticity, and you learned and you noticed your energy levels just decrease, decrease, decrease. But you didn't check in with yourself. How am I sleeping? How's my stress? What am I eating? So it's really important to do the basic things because the basic things will really resolve 90% of most people's issues. And sometimes they got to hire somebody like me or go as deep as they physically and mentally and spiritually can into whatever disease they're in. And then say, okay, now I have to check in and do these little things. But at that point, you've already lost your quality of life. And I see that with a lot of people. And it's really unfortunate, but all I can say is in the environment that we're in, because it's all about making money here. Money is king, is God. That's where spirituality kind of starts and ends here in America. You have to take care of yourself.
And one of the things that came to mind while you were talking, you know, I've heard people break down the word disease as in dis-ease in regards to your pillars of health, right? I mean, if your body doesn't have these pillars of health in place, then toxic things can exist in the environment, aka your body, right? And so, I mean, as a health coach, I mean, I know you gave some tangible kind of like examples of checking in with yourself and the pillars of health, whether it's sleep, whether it's are there any other things that people can sort of go off of in terms of checking in with themselves and creating an environment so that dis-ease can't take place?
Yes, there's 6 foundation principles of health that everybody has to take care of. Your breathing detoxifies your body, it pumps your body, and it helps. Essentially, it's the most important thing. If you're unable to breathe, you're going to be more susceptible to all diseases because you're not able to properly get oxygen to where it needs to go, and you're in a perpetual stressful state. Most people, you got to be able to drink enough water. You got to be able to hydrate. If you're not hydrated, our body's made of mostly water. So if you do come in contact with a disease or virus, you have to dilute it and get rid of it, right? If you don't drink enough water and you're drinking Pepsi, cola, teas, and you never actually drinking water and you go out in a subway and somebody sneezes and that virus is in your system, your body has no help of diluting it and getting it out of your system. So hydration, your nutrition, of course, we got to get our minerals, vitamins. You have to get like fat soluble vitamins into your system, right? Sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're just going to burn out. It's kind of simple. And you got to move your body because when you move your body, even so, for example, many people deal with constipation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly because they're not pumping. Like when you walk, your body is actually pumping. When you exercise, your body is pumping, and that helps move things along. So that's stagnation. And and yeah, man, thinking as well. If you have a negative mindset, your psyche's always thinking about the negative things. Oh, they're out to get me. Oh, my life sucks. I'm not good enough. All those things I said before are going to be hindered as well. So all these things are just interconnected, just systems on top of systems. But they're simple though. They're simple foundations of health. And I think if they taught people that in schools, if they made these type of simple things available to people when the coronavirus hit, I cannot imagine what our world in America could look like, even with the same philosophy of money is God. So, um, hopefully as we share this information, 5, 10, 15, 20 people take away from the fact that, hey, if I take care of myself with the basics, you know, I'm gonna be okay. Because listen, I'm not against doctors, I'm not against these medications. But if you have a car crash, yes. But if I I got a little cold, come on, bro. You know what I mean? We all got to be a little bit more resilient. So that's my TED talk on that.
Appreciate that. And I think you did a great job of breaking it down. Thanks for answering that question directly and giving people something tangible to go off of. Yeah, the more in tune people are with their bodies, they're the better they're able to seek things before they develop into a point where they have to go visit a doctor.
Pay attention. Pay attention. If you can't have fun with your lady, if you're a man, yeah, I mean, after years, don't just start taking a pill. Maybe you're overly inflamed. Take a cold shower, wake yourself up, get your blood going, and then do different things because a lot of natural things can get you where you want to be. But yeah, so I had to add that in there because I think
No, absolutely, Matt. Listen, I think for me at least, when it comes to health, I have more of a holistic approach than the American Medical Association, because those things seem to have their own agenda. And what's up?
Yo, a lot of the doctors I've spoken to, like that are around my age or in residency, they're more attuned to nutrition. I was talking to this girl recently. She was like, um, they're asking us some things they should add to the medical school, like the curriculum. And people were saying nutrition. Because if you're not aware, they don't teach doctors nutrition. So when you go in with a sickness headache, they're not teaching you about fucking what I just said, hydration, nutrition, sleep. They're not taught that type of stuff. So I think as young people we're gonna make positive changes.
Mm. What do you think about that? I mean, besides like bringing our attention to that, what do you think about doctors not being well versed in nutrition?
It just shows you why you need to think for yourself and why just because somebody's an authority figure does not mean they know everything. Just like you listening right now, you Jihad and all those listeners out there, were your parents right about fucking everything? No, there's no way.
They don't know everything.
Exactly. So these doctors as well, they have Dr. Google. You know what I mean? they'll be like, okay, yeah, I understand. They're writing down all your symptoms, and then they leave that room and they do Google that shit, those
Oh,
symptoms.
oh, you know what's funny? Speaking of, I remember when I sprained my ankle playing softball, and I went to the city MD. The woman who's, I was trusting to kind of like teach me how to take care of my situation, my injury, so that I get better. She brought in a packet, and she was like reading off the packet, and I was just like, "Lady, these are things I already know. Like, you're the doctor here. You're the person that I'm going to for this information. I could have gotten this myself." So yeah, that's
Right.
just something that came to mind, and I can only imagine people in more dire situations. So that's kind of crazy.
It's very crazy. It's very crazy. It makes me think about when I had my injury in college. I went through rehab with 3 different physical therapists, and all they would do is work on my ankle, just like pound, 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 like I'm a robot.
Mhm.
Like, God. But
Yeah,
I got to this point, and now yeah.
yeah. I mean, in terms of like what you said about systems on top of each other all working together, it makes me think about in my personal training experience, when you have an injury, let's say a knee injury, sometimes the knee isn't the issue, sometimes it's the ankle, sometimes it's the thigh, sometimes it's above or below, and if you fix those other things, then the knee won't compensate as much. And so just that line of thinking, I think, kind of opens up the idea that sometimes it's more inclusive to involve other things or look at other areas than the actual source of origin of pain. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's important so that because stress is it goes into a bucket. And if that bucket overflows, that's when you get into disease. So within that bucket is your stress from your relationships. So if you're going through it with your significant other, that's going to fill it up. Then if you eat, you don't do with McDonald's, Burger King, you eat a bunch of that, then it goes up. And then if you go through an injury, like you roll your ankle, even higher, and that's not even like you're doing. So then say you're going down the street, somebody cuts you off and you tip over, boom. Your body can't handle that level of stress. So then it's just going to push you towards disease. And people stay at that high level and overflow for days, months, years, decades, and they get cancers. And then they talk to me at my day job where I'm listing off 8 to 12 medications. It makes me very disappointed because it's like, damn, dude, you need all this to survive every day. But yeah, because it's crazy. Like we're talking about, it makes you think we're talking about these pharmaceutical companies, and I am working in the insurance game. So the amount of medications people over 65 are take, whenever somebody doesn't take medications, I always give them kudos because they are a rare bird. Everybody else is taking 8, 7 on average medications for high blood pressure, cholesterol, all these things that can be fixed just by changing their lifestyle, i.e., nutrition, sleep, checking out the air quality, and I don't want that for us. I don't. I don't.
It's an
Um,
interesting position you're in. As someone, as you said, that works in health insurance, but is also a life coach and has these natural remedies to a lot of these issues that, people are coming to you about.
People tell
It's
me this all the time. People tell me this all the time, but I'm working my way out of the insurance game. I left, then had to come back, and hopefully soon. But really, the way I frame it in my mind so that I sleep well is that these people paid into the Social Security their whole working career, and now they just need to be able to be in the right insurance plan that is able to provide them with the level of care that they deserve as Americans who paid into this shit their whole life. Because if you look at your check breakdown, we're paying into that shit now too.
Mhm.
So that's how I frame it. But but yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
need to get these people in a room and talk to them and teach them those 6 foundational principles.
right. No, it sounds like that's your pool of clients right there. I mean, however much they're spending on medications, I mean, I'm sure that some of that can be cut down if they just went to one direct source, and that person was able to help them assess their lifestyle and different habits that they can change. But I mean, can you teach an old dog new tricks? I don't know. It's another
That is a good
conversation.
question. That is a good question. It's got to be a motivated dog.
Hmm.
Yeah. But this whole conversation makes me think about that sober challenge we had and how much I gained from it. One thing I will say is I did it last year myself, and it was fun to do it with somebody else. So I appreciate you doing that with me. And I don't know. I think with people that don't know where to start with their health or their wellness, going a month where you eat certain foods, you avoid certain gut irritants that most people go through. Um, then when you re-add things, you have a new perspective. You know what I mean? Oh, my skin was clear. I'm breaking out now after I had that Dunkin' Donuts croissant. Maybe the Dunkin' Donut croissant has something in it that messes with my skin. Now I can make the decision consciously. Is it worth it to have the Dunkin' Donut croissant um and the acne, or the no acne but without the croissant? So then it kind of one thing for me is moving forward is I love taking these breaks from certain things that are numbing in a way. I don't even want to say that because I felt weird, but numbing or crutches that I used throughout my life. If I can go periods of time without it, then I can understand how to naturally integrate and create boundaries around these things and be balanced when I am taking these substances. So, for example, with us, we didn't do alcohol, psychedelics of any kind. We had coffee here and there because we got to make money, right, in this capitalistic society. But uh, but besides that, I enjoyed it. And now moving forward into February, I'm going to be practicing the 80-20 rule. What's the 80-20 rule? 80% of the time is I'm sober, and 20% of the time I'm going to enjoy these substances. I'm going to maybe I'll have a drink with a friend, or if I'm out and about, or I'll enjoy some weed gummies here and there. And I'm not going to go over 70-30. That's my goal and my plan, because I do take I do think there's lots of benefits when I am sober, just because I feel like I'm more clear. I connect more with people, and I'm in the room, and I get great sleep, and I have dreams. So I do enjoy those dreams, to be honest. But I think moving forward, that's one thing I'm really thankful for doing the sober challenge. So thank you for doing that with me. And now this upcoming month, I'm going to challenge myself in different ways. I'm going to with when it comes to food, I'm going to try and be stay away from things that have the added sugar, so the cane sugar, um, and try to make things instead that have naturally occurring sugars, and just try to eat whole foods this month and add in some new recipes and try some new meats and go to the grocery store and grab something new. I did that today and I'm excited to try it out and just like experience different foods because one thing I did notice this winter for myself is that adding in more raw foods, I'm not my immune system is ridiculously strong this year. I haven't gotten sick. I haven't even gotten close to sick. And I think there's something to that. So I'm trying to lean into that this upcoming month. But if you do have anything to share about the sober month, just like anything, did you enjoy it? Any little information you have?
For sure. So yeah, during the sober month, I definitely learned a lot about myself. I feel like a lot of the things that you said in terms of being able to connect more with people, being in the room, just not having the distraction of, substances allowed me to realize a little bit where I was spending my time and how I was, using my time. So just carrying over that momentum, I feel is something that I want to be a trend of the year, is each month giving myself a goal, um, you know, on top of whatever I learned last month, and just carrying that momentum over to see at the midpoint of the year, toward the end of the year, where has this focus and tension gotten me? And so yeah, I plan to be more consistent. A lot of what you were saying in terms of the 80-20 rule, I'm going to try to be diligent about how I spend my time. So I want to do things that are productive. I want to not play video games when I come home immediately. I want to spend my idle time doing something that will get me a step further in my personal goals of getting this podcast off the ground, getting more listeners, more viewers to join our conversations. Um, and in terms of just the things that I've accumulated, knowledge, wisdom that I've accumulated thus far, whether it's psycho-cybernetics, whether it's Joe Dispenza's, becoming supernatural and applying mental strategies to help me focus more diligently on the future that I'm trying to create for myself, using sacred geometry in the form of the Sri Yantra to meditate every night before bed. So I have intention when I'm waking up. It's not just aimlessly like, all right, going ahead about my day. It's like, no, I got 14, 15 hours. How am I using this? And not being in a militant way, but just paying attention to how I'm spending my time. So it's what I've been
So
able to gather from my first month, and that's the goal for me going forward in February. And so don't be surprised if you hear me checking in with you guys, letting you know how last week went. I'll be very honest. If I'm not doing the best, I'll keep it real because everyone goes through these things. I'm not special. So yeah. And iron sharpens iron. I think, like you said, a lot of what you said in terms of doing this with someone else helps. It's an accountability buddy.
yeah, it's helpful to tell people your goals because it gives you a little bit of added pressure. And for anything you want to do in your life, I think creating boundaries and disciplines around it is a smart thing to do. Create goals that are 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, monthly, weekly, daily, and be your own parent. Create your own kind of route that you want to go down and write it down and make it real. We all can manifest the things we want to manifest in the world, and it just takes deliberate intention. So, um,
And practical
but
steps, one day at a time. What are you gonna say? I won't cut you off.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say you had to be in the room to do that. You know what I mean? You have to kind of be grounded and present. You can't always be just watching TV, video games, music, getting caught up in what's going on in sports news, entertainment, or family drama. You have to be present, take account of where you are and where you want to go. Otherwise, those other people, their stories are going to be kind of programmed into you. So program yourself with what you would like. And I think that's important. So,
Quick
but I
question.
enjoyed this.
What I was gonna ask, quick question. What is those moments of reflection look like for you in terms of knowing what the bigger picture is, abstaining from everyone else's narratives and, whatever programming they be contributing to you? And
I'd say putting things on paper, journaling, writing where I am, where I'd like to go.
do you have a
And
particular day in your week where you prefer to do that, or that it happens to happen, or
okay, happens to happen. That rings a little better because I really don't play it. It's more of like when it's I have the inspiration. But I think Sundays, the Lord's Day is oftentimes when I catch myself. I think honestly throughout my life, Sundays is that day where you kind of check in and you kind of write and yeah, kind of try to create the future. But I don't know, man. One of the things with every client, most people I've ever like worked with or I've helped or I've shared, I give them these 10 questions for finding your dream. And I think it's so important. If you can write down what type of geography, what type of people you want to work with, what type of hours, just get that out there. Ask yourself these questions. You don't have to share them with anybody, but figure out what a dream life is to you, and then from there, at least you have your antenna to what it could look like for you instead of you walk through your job, your boss creates your dream or, the people that you have relationships, your family, whoever you're in a relationship, they create your dream. So we have to be intentional because God gave us that ability and that gift to be intentional. So yeah, man, get a journal, write some shit down.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Because it's worked for me. The thing that's the crazy part about life is the things you think and talk about, it becomes, whether it's conscious or not. I mean,
Talk about it, man.
Before I moved out here, man, I used to talk to my mom, hey, I'm gonna move to the Midwest all the time. It didn't even it wasn't even like a conscious thing. And I'd always listen to this. One of my favorite bands is Chicago. So I think just saying words all the time, and when you think these certain things, it will come true. So,
And maybe it's important to think about what you want because things that you're saying often might be the things that come true.
Yeah, like all men are trash. Any woman I come in contact with, that's a question I always ask. So are
Or
all men trash?
or like what you asked me the other day about like rap lyrics. You listen to Ready to Die and you're just like, what do you think about saying these things? Do you, is it a coincidence? I mean, if you believe things, if you have an emotional charge behind the things that you say, whether you say it passively or intentionally, chances are those things might eventually come true in some way, shape, or form. It may not be exactly, but to some degree.
Oh,
So
100%. It's
I
happened
agree
to
with you,
me.
man. Yeah.
It's happened to me. Man, I was doing dumb things in high school and I was listening to dumb things. So now I can't even listen to that type of rap lyrics too much. It's too hard.
And yeah, I think this is something that a lot of people think about, whether, in the form of like rap lyrics, in the form of prayer, in the form of writing goals down. People say that what our words have resonance, or our words, are vibrations. And, speaking something oftenly, you're either programming yourself or, helping form the reality that you are creating for yourself. So, yeah, man, I think you struck on some really, really critical things here, man. And I hope people are able to write a few things down and give themselves something to, work with for the next month or two and see it where it takes them. If there's validity to the things that we're saying, then why not continue to, keep either doing your own research or, picking up little tidbits of things that we're sharing.
And Jihad, you can only learn by trying. You can't learn by seeing reviews on the internet, reading how to do it. You can only learn by actually going through meditations, journaling, doing all these things we're talking about, checking in with your sleep, your breathing. You got to do it. Do the work.
Thank you. And yeah, we're gonna end on that note. If you guys like this video, please download it on Spotify. It helps the channel grow. Share this with someone that you love or you like, or yeah, just help us get this conversation out to the public, and so that we can join our tribe. This has been another episode of Consciousness at Play, and we will see you guys next week.